The Dhamma, is it a philosophy? The non-aggressive, moral and philosophical system expounded by the Buddha, which demands no blind faith from its adherents, expounds no dogmatic creeds, encourages no superstitious rites and ceremonies, but advocates a golden mean that guides a disciple through pure living and pure thinking to the gain of supreme wisdom and deliverance from all evil, is called the Dhamma and is popularly known as Buddhism. The all-merciful Buddha has passed away, but the sublime Dhamma, which he unreservedly bequeathed to humanity, still exists in its pristine purity. Although the Master has left no written records of his teachings, his distinguished disciples preserved them by committing to memory and transmitting them orally from generation to generation. Immediately after his demise, 500 chief arahants, versed in the Dhamma and Vinaya, held a convocation to rehearse the doctrine as was originally taught by the Buddha. Venerable Nārada Thera, who enjoyed the special privilege of hearing all the discourses, recited the Dhamma, while the Venerable Pāli recited the Vinaya. The Tipitaka was compiled and arranged in its present form by those arahants of old. During the reign of the pious Sinhala king, Vada Gamaniyabhaya, about 83 BC, the Tipitaka was, for the first time in the history of Buddhism, committed to writing on ola palm leaves in Ceylon, Sri Lanka. This voluminous Tipitaka, which contains the essence of the Buddhist teaching, is estimated to be about 11 times the size of the Bible. A striking contrast between the Tipitaka and the Bible is that the former is not a gradual development like the latter. As the word itself implies, the Tipitaka consists of 3 baskets. They are the basket of discipline, Vinaya Pitaka, the basket of discourses, Sutta Pitaka, and the basket of ultimate doctrine, Abhidhamma Pitaka. The Vinaya Pitaka, which is regarded as the sheet anchor of the oldest historic celibate order, the Sangha, mainly deals with rules and regulations, which the Buddha promulgated as occasion arose for the future discipline of the order of monks bhikkhus and nuns bhikkhunis. It describes in detail the gradual development of the Sasana dispensation. An account of the life and ministry of the Buddha is also given. Indirectly, it reveals some important and interesting information about ancient history, Indian customs, arts, science, etc. This Pitaka consists of the 5 following books. 1. Parajika, Pāli, Major Offenses, Vibhanga. 2. Pachitiya, Pāli, Minor Offenses, Vibhanga. 3. Mahavaga, Pāli, Greater Section, Khandaka. 4. Chula Vaga, Pāli, Shorter Section, Khandaka. 5. Parivara, Pāli, Epitome of the Vinaya. The Sutta Pitaka consists chiefly of discourses delivered by the Buddha himself on various occasions. There are also a few discourses delivered by some of his distinguished disciples, such as the Venerable Sariputta, Ananda, Moggallana, etc., included in it. It is like a book of prescriptions, as the sermons embodied therein were expounded to suit the different occasions and the temperaments of various persons. There may be seemingly contradictory statements, but they should not be misconstrued, as they were opportunely uttered by the Buddha to suit a particular purpose. For instance, to the selfsame question, he would maintain silence when the inquirer is merely foolishly inquisitive, or give a detailed reply when he knew the inquirer to be an earnest seeker. Most of the sermons were intended mainly for the benefit of bhikkhus, and they deal with the holy life and with the exposition of the doctrine. There are also several other discourses which deal with both the material and moral progress of his lay followers. This Pitaka is divided into 5 nikayas, or collections, viz. 1. Digha Nikaya, collection of long discourses. 2. Majjhima Nikaya, collection of middle-length discourses. 3. Sanjutta Nikaya, collection of connected discourses sayings. 4. Anguttara Nikaya, collection of gradual discourses, arranged in accordance with numbers. 5. Khuddaka Nikaya, smaller collection. The 5th is subdivided into 15 books. 1. Khuddaka Patha, shorter texts. 2. Dhammapada, way of truth. 3. Udana, paeans of joy. 4. Itavutaka, thus said discourses. 5. Suttanipada, group of discourses. 6. Vimanavathu, stories of celestial mansions. 7. Paritavathu, stories of departed ones. 8. Theragatha, verses of the senior monks. 9. Therigatha, verses of the senior nuns. 10. Yataka, birth stories. 11. Nidasa, expositions. 12. Padasambhita, analytical knowledge. 13. Apadana, lives of arahants. 14. Buddha Vangsa, the chronicle of Buddhas. 15. Chariya Pitaka, modes of conduct. The Abhidhamma Pitaka is the most interesting of the 3, containing as it does the profound philosophy of the Buddha's teaching, in contrast to the illuminating and simpler discourses in the Sutta Pitaka. In the Sutta Pitaka is found the conventional teaching, Vohara Dasana, while in the Abhidhamma Pitaka is found the ultimate teaching, Paramatha Dasana. To the wise, Abhidhamma is an indispensable guide. To the spiritually evolved, an intellectual treat. And to research scholars, food for thought. Consciousness is defined. Thoughts are analyzed and classified, chiefly from an ethical standpoint. Mental states are enumerated. The composition of each type of consciousness is set forth in detail. How thoughts arise is minutely described. Irrelevant problems that interest mankind, but having no relation to one's purification, are deliberately set aside. Matter is summarily discussed. Fundamental units of matter, properties of matter, sources of matter. Relationship between mind and matter are explained. The Abhidhamma investigates mind and matter, the 2 composite factors of the so-called being, to help the understanding of things as they truly are, and a philosophy has been developed on those lines. Based on that philosophy, an ethical system has been evolved to realize the ultimate goal, Nibbana. The Abhidhamma Pitaka consists of 7 books. 1. Dhamma Sangani, classification of Dhammas. 2. Vibhanga, the Book of Divisions. 3. Katha Vathu, Points of Controversy. 4. Pugala Panyati, Description of Individuals. 5. Dhatu Katha, Discussion with reference to elements. 6. Yamaka, the Book of Pairs. 7. Patana, the Book of Relations. In the Tipitaka, one finds milk for the babe and meat for the strong. For the Buddha taught his doctrine, both to the masses and to the intelligentsia. The sublime Dhamma, enshrined in these sacred texts, deals with truths and facts, and is not concerned with theories and philosophies, which may be accepted as profound truths today only, to be thrown overboard tomorrow. The Buddha has presented us with no new astounding philosophical theories, nor did he venture to create any new material science. He explained to us what is within and without, so far as it concerns our emancipation, and ultimately expounded a path of deliverance which is unique. Incidentally, he has, however, forestalled many modern scientists and philosophers. Schopenhauer, in his World as Will and Idea, has presented the truth of suffering and its cause in a Western garb. Spinoza, though he denies not the existence of a permanent reality, asserts that all phenomenal existence is transitory. In his opinion, sorrow is conquered by finding an object of knowledge which is not transient, not ephemeral, but is immutable, permanent, everlasting. Berkeley proved that the so-called indivisible atom is a metaphysical fiction. Hume, after a relentless analysis of the mind, concluded that consciousness consists of fleeting mental states. Bergson advocates the doctrine of change. Professor James refers to a stream of consciousness. The Buddha expounded these doctrines of transiency, anicca, sorrow, dukkha, and no soul, anatta, some 2,500 years ago, while he was sojourning in the valley of the Ganges. It should be understood that the Buddha did not preach all that he knew. On one occasion, while the Buddha was passing through a forest, he took a handful of leaves and said, "O bhikkhus, what I have taught is comparable to the leaves in my hand. What I have not taught is comparable to the amount of leaves in the forest." He taught what he deemed was absolutely essential for one's purification, making no distinction between an esoteric and exoteric doctrine. He was characteristically silent on questions irrelevant to his noble mission. Buddhism no doubt accords with science, but both should be treated as parallel teachings. Since one deals mainly with material truths, while the other confines itself to moral and spiritual truths, the subject matter of each is different. The Dhamma he taught is not merely to be preserved in books, nor is it a subject to be studied from an historical or literary standpoint. On the contrary, it is to be learned and put into practice in the course of one's daily life. For without practice, one cannot appreciate the truth. The Dhamma is to be studied and more to be practiced, and above all, to be realized. Immediate realization is its ultimate goal. As such, the Dhamma is compared to a raft, which is meant for the sole purpose of escaping from the ocean of birth and death, samsara. Buddhism, therefore, cannot strictly be called a mere philosophy, because it is not merely the love of inducing the search after wisdom. Buddhism may approximate a philosophy, but it is very much more comprehensive. Philosophy deals mainly with knowledge and is not concerned with practice, whereas Buddhism lays special emphasis on practice and realization.